What makes someone remarkable? Do you mind being described as the white people whisperer? What is the optimal age to get married?
That year was the first year that we ever heard a teacher talk about race.
Is the college application process fair?
You start to find the non-obvious way kind of works.
Is there like a cartoonist community? So many times when we go live with these things, it's like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, boom.
Boom.
Welcome to the Non-Obvious Book Review. Today we have Barry Moltz, who is a change master himself. He's the host of a radio show. He helps small business owners get unstuck, and he's been doing it for many, many years, and he's a great friend of mine. Welcome, Barry. It's so good to have you.
Rohit, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And my first question for you is, what makes Changemasters non-obvious?
I think a lot of people don't really understand how hard change is. They confuse intention with actually making changes. They think they're making changes or they're making excuses to making changes, but nothing ever really changes. And it's hard because your biology fights against it. Your brain is a pattern-making machine, and quite honestly, for survival, it doesn't want you to make a change.
You know, what was funny for me was one of the things that really resonated for me in your book was you talked about how small business owners often pay for advice and then don't take it. Why is that so common?
Well, it's common for me because I get called into all sorts of situations and people say, hey, they're stuck, they have a problem, they want to make a change. We lay out an entire plan, they pay a lot of money to do it. We agree if they execute this plan, then it will bring them more profits or whatever their goal is. And then almost nothing ever happens because they're stuck in not changing. Because I believe that people only change when they're in incredible pain, when they absolutely have no choice. I mean, if you think about it, why do people stay in business partnerships well past when they should? Why do people stay in marital relationships way past they should? Because change is hard. People fear the unknown. People fear the lack of control. People fear not knowing what's going to happen next. And sometimes the devil you know is better than the devil you don't know.
It's fascinating because there's entire industries devoted to innovating, right? To like getting ahead of the change, to like anticipating the future. And what you're saying is you got to be in some real pain before you'll even do that.
Yeah, because your brain is lazy. I mean, think about when a lot of us used to commute to the office, or maybe you're going to the grocery store. You go exactly the same way every time. And many of us realize we get in the car and all of a sudden we're there and we don't know how we actually got there. Your brain just runs through the same route without you even going. Now, try to take a different route to the grocery store. You got to think. And it's a lot more difficult. And as we age, we really don't want to think as much. As much as we say that we want to have beginner's mind, we really don't, unfortunately.
And you focus on helping people get unstuck. So let's say someone is stuck and you're starting to advise them. What is the first thing they should do?
Well, the first thing I ask them is where's their pain? What do they really want to change? Because they should work on the thing that they think is holding them back. Now, not necessarily the thing that actually is holding them back, but what they think is holding them back. And so what I always try to do is let's start with the smallest possible change you can make, because you have more of a chance of doing a very small change than a big change. I mean, think about it. We're coming to, the beginning of the year and people say, oh, I really want to get in shape. So they join a gym. And the first week they go 5 days a week. And then the second week they go 4 days a week. Then the third week they go 3 days a week. And by the end of the month, they quit because they came out too fast. If you could start making a change by just doing something really, really small, celebrating its success or trying to learn from its failure, and then make the next change, you have a lot more chance of sustaining a change over long term without trying to do something really big all at once.
What is an example of a small change?
Well, for me, so for example, I'm helping one of my wife's cousins make a change, and he's in the digital marketing business, and he doesn't want to be in the digital marketing business. He wants to be in the psychedelic mushroom business, right? So what's the one small change he can start with? Well, he's looking up in the city of Chicago the classes they offer in this particular area. So his first small change was just to go on the website and look to see what classes were offered. That's the only thing that he had to do, not enroll in the class, not take the class, just look something up. And again, the more success that we have over these small changes, the more confidence we'll have to keep going.
Do you see this as a way of hacking your brain and the way your brain works?
Yeah, I think it's a good way to look at it because I think you do have to hack your brain because everything being equal, you're going to keep doing the same thing you've done over and over again. I mean, think about how difficult it is for these large corporations, even when the industry changes, for them to change. I mean, I worked a lot with the Yellow Pages. Let me tell you, that was a money-making machine. When they brought out this book once a year for advertising, they tried to shift over to digital advertising, but the margins weren't as good. Think about how Blockbuster could have gotten into the industry that Netflix got into. In fact, could have bought them, but they were making so much money on late fees, they didn't make the change. This is why so many times the leader in the industry isn't the one that brings out the innovation.
It is pretty common. And one of the things that you do look at is, I mean, you focus on small businesses. Do you think that small businesses have an easier time making changes, or do you think it's just the same level of difficulty no matter if you're at a large company or a small one?
I would like to believe that with a smaller ship, it's easier to turn it around than a battleship, but people really are set in their ways because they have a certain way of thinking and they only take in, it's the confirmation bias, right, Rohit? That you only take in the information that really reinforces your point of view and you put everything else out. I mean, I remember I was running a business. We were a technical software catalog company, and I was trying to get some of our customers who were professors that created scientific software to hire a marketing person. So I finally convinced this CEO as a technical professor to hire a marketing person. And so Joe starts on Monday. I call Joe. I congratulate him from his new marketing position. And I call him the next week and he's no longer there. So I go to the technical founder and I go, well, what happened to Joe? He goes, well, we tried it for a week. It didn't work. Right. And so it's a
Yeah.
self-fulfilling prophecy. He didn't think it was going to work. And so, but he proved to himself that it wouldn't work. And of course, it didn't.
Do people come to you? I mean, I could see one instance of that where he comes to you and says, "Hey, look, man, you told me to change and I made the change. Like I changed.
That's
So
right.
what did I
I
do
tried it. It
wrong?"
didn't work. Right. It didn't work. Right. And,
Yeah.
and again, most sustainable changes take a very long time. We know that habits are not created overnight. Changes in business aren't. But again, I see that people only make the changes when they have no choice. So, for example, maybe they lost their largest customer, or maybe their sales is going down, or their cost of actually making the product are zooming up. That's when they really look at their profit and loss statement and says, I got to find a way to do this less expensively. But until that happens, if they're making 20% net profit, they just keep going the way they're going. They're not looking actually to make 25% net profit.
The title of the book is interesting as well. Changemasters. It's not make the change now. It's not do the change once. It's, you talk about mastery. Is this a
Right.
skill set that you think eventually people can master and just be really good at, or is it you got to do this change and then you got to kind of reinvent and do the next one?
I mean, for me, over my career, I started IBM and then I got this crazy idea that I want to run my own businesses. And of course, when I started my first business, my parents said to me, well, maybe IBM, who I was working for at the time, would take me back when I failed at my first business. But I've
Parents, they're
had to
great that way, aren't they?
exactly. Well, when I didn't become a doctor or a lawyer, they were forever ashamed of me. Not really, but that's the way it goes in Jewish households. But I
Indian too.
really, right, exactly. I really think that this is something that you have to continually work at because, again, change is not natural. Change is not biology. Your brain says if you've been surviving this long under the current conditions, it must be okay. And the longer you do something, the more okay it becomes. So you constantly have to keep going back and face the challenge of change, and you can't get comfortable. So I think it's something that we're working at for a very long time.
So let's talk about the book specifically. Who do you hope picks up the book, and what sort of feedback have you gotten from people who have picked up the book?
Well, it's really kind of interesting because as I was writing the book, there's a worksheet that lists the 20 steps you have to take to make any kind of change. So I was, of course, testing it out on, hundreds of people, and I gave the worksheet to my wife, and I said, honey, Sarah, please fill this out about a change you want to make, because I'm trying to see if this step-by-step process works. So she looks at the worksheet, and she says, I don't have to make any changes. I don't have to fill out this worksheet. So I said, okay, well, I guess she's not the target audience, Rohit.
Yeah.
I really hope it's for small business owners that are struggling to make a change. People have a lot of good intentions, but to actually make the change is really hard. In business, people do a lot of talking. folks have a hard time taking action. And what I want to encourage people is, how do I take that very, very small change? What's the first steps I have to do to actually accomplish that very small step? What kind of support do I need? Because I really believe there has to be some kind of accountability coach that can support you in making that change. Because as you know, studies have shown if you tell someone you're going to do something, you're more likely to do it than if you just keep it to yourself.
That's absolutely right. And look, the book Changemasters, right here, is a very quick read. It's got a lot of practical advice. I love the layout of it. It's very visual. It's easy to digest, and it is sort of tailored towards people spotting the thing that holds them back and trying to overcome it. And so for me, also, I mean, not only am I a friend of yours and I worked on the book, but also I am a target audience for it, right? Because I'm a small business owner, and I don't like to change as proactively as I probably should. And I've paid for advice that I've not taken. And so a lot of
That's right.
what you talked about in the book, it described me, and it really resonated for me. And I think it will for other people. So thank you for writing it. Any final thoughts, and also share with people how they can continue to follow you and get more of your advice?
The final thought really is that if you're having a hard time making a change, you're not alone. We all have a hard time making a change, and there is a way to make these small, patient, iterative changes that can get to you where you want to go. Of course, you can go to my website www.barrymoltz.com, moltz.com, or wherever books are sold.
Awesome. Thank you for joining me, Barry, and thank you for helping to teach the audience how to be a change master.
Thanks, Rohit.